Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Scooter's World, brought to you from the Granville Guitars World Headquarters here in lovely St. Petersburg, Florida. This morning, we're going to be taking a look at a 1967 Fender Twin Reverb that I have restored. It was probably in some sort of long-term heat moisture damage or possibly a flood even, not really sure, but it was really in rotten shape when it came in. Ended up having to do quite an extensive bit of work to it. The first wave to this amplifier involved replacing the filter caps, which are underneath the chassis in a doghouse on the underside. We're not going to cover that stuff today. Probably do that in another video. That was the big part. Those were all leaky and original and old. Also, I replaced all of the power tube sockets for the 6L6 power tubes here. They were very corroded, quite damaged, making all kinds of racket, generally giving things a hard time. So the sockets were actually replaced, as well as the screen grid resistors, those big white salt lick resistors that you see there, and also the swamping resistors, those little 1.5Ks you see down inside there. All of that wiring, all those sockets was all replaced. That was part of the first wave. Also, I went in here to this little board, which is the bias supply board, which consists of that capacitor, this 100 at 100, this diode, and this resistor here, that big 470. That's all the bias supply, along with the bias potentiometer. And that stuff had to be replaced. It was all cruddy and rotten, and also all of these rectifier diodes were replaced as well. These are not original. These are high-powered diodes that I've replaced everything with, help everything run longer and cooler, etc. So all of that was replaced as part of the first wave. And I was pretty happy with it at that point. Filter caps, bias supply, power tube sockets. I was real happy with how that went. Oh, I also cleaned up all of these ground points. You'll notice at each one of these ground points, I took the nut off and the solder connector off and cleaned it all very good underneath there to make sure that my ground points were solid. That's the safety ground. This is a ground for the filter supply here, which is involved with the phase inverter and also the tremolo. And here is a ground for the bias supply back there, tucked underneath the pilot light. All of that chassis area there had to be cleaned up. All of this right in there. Had to make sure that I got a good ground connection at all those points. That was all part of the first wave, and the amp sounded really good after all of that. Put in some fresh tubes, fresh filter caps, everything went well. But it had some noises to it, some little ghost clicks and hisses and pops, and that's not desirable. So I went after the rest of the amplifier, ended up replacing all of the wire that it was hooked up with at the rear of the board. You can see all of this wire is brand new. I used high temperature 22 gauge wire, and I'm real happy with how it worked out. You can see these extra shielded wires here for the inputs and outputs to the two channels at V1 and V2 on pin 2 and pin 7. Down here at the actual input channels, you can see that some of these components have been replaced. These caps are original. Those are your tone stack caps. Those are very important to this amplifier's tonality. We call those the blue sausages, and you don't replace those unless they're just completely destroyed and leaky and can't do their job anymore. I put up with a little bit of noise from those just because their tone is so good. Sozo is making a nice reproduction of those, and they're excellent. I've used some recently, and they're really good, but the originals are still just a little better. These little carbon film resistors here, these plate resistors, sorry about that, had already been replaced when I got to the amplifier, and those are a good replacement. I would leave the old ones in unless they're just destroyed or whatever, but someone got to me first, or somebody before me actually got to it first and replaced those. You have bypass caps that were replaced as well as the resistors with those. Here we have some more plate resistors, an original blue sausage there. All of this has been replaced, obviously. More resistors that were replaced before I got to it. And as we go down here, this was there when I got to it, probably original, but maybe not. These two I replaced. I had to replace the tremolo bug and a number of these resistors in here. This 10 meg was okay, so it was left in place. All of these were replaced, and these here, point ones, these here, these point ones were replaced as well, just to get better clarity and power handling, etc. But it's turned out really, really well. I'm really happy with it. It's nice and quiet. The tone is just what you would expect from a twin reverb. It actually sounds gorgeous. It really, really does. I left everything forward of the board original. Original input jacks, original potentiometers, original input resistors, etc. All that stuff was left original because it's still working good. Cleaned up the pots, cleaned up the contacts on the jacks. It's all still working really, really well, so you leave it. And it's, it's not necessary for power handling, etc. So it's not necessarily a reliability issue in that case. But anyway, that gives you an idea of the extent of the work that went into this little jewel. It sounds fantastic. It sounds exactly the way you'd want a twin reverb to sound. It's real big and bright and clean. It's got JBLs in it, so it's got that going for it. I'll probably do another video clip with the actual sound of the amplifier so you can get an idea of how that turned out. But that's all I got for today. If you have any questions about this or anything else we do here at Granville Guitars, please feel free to contact us via Facebook or on the web at www.granvilleguitars.com. That's all I've got for today. Thanks for looking in.